Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this third webinar in the series around child-rich community. Hope you're comfortable in wherever you are around the motu. And today we're going to have hear from Erena and Lisa. Lisa's in the Gore district and Erena's in the Ruapehu district, and they're going to talk about some really cool initiatives there. We just had a really good yak, so look forward to hearing from them shortly. But I'm just going to do a little bit of brief overview. So apologies to those of you who heard this before. So but I'll just do a quick background for people about it. So these webinars help get some sort of insights or snapshots into different places, different communities that are trying working more collectively or collaboratively around making their communities a really great place for children to grow up and to live in. And as we're doing this, we're learning from each other. There's no big magic answer that any one community has, but we find facilitating those conversations and ideas between different communities helps share that insights. Sometimes it plants an idea that you think, oh, they tried that in that community. I wonder if it would work in our community. And a lot of that sort of stuff is really the sort of bread and butter of what we call a community-led development approach. So the child-rich communities is part of that wider conversation we're having across the nation about concern about child poverty. And there's some really important things we know as a nation and communities we need to do to tackle child poverty. In doing that, we're child-rich communities are saying there's a whole lot of resources and expertise and wisdom that sits in the streets and neighbourhoods and communities that we really want to actually utilise that as well. So that's we hope that really complements and feeds into the sort of concerns about child poverty and strengthens, you know, child, whānau, street, neighbourhood connections and that. Child-rich communities isn't a program, it's not a service, it's more of an approach, it's a way of working. So, we'd like to acknowledge some of the agencies that have come together that sort of want to support us learn in this way. So there's Inspiring Communities, which I'm a part of, there's Bernardo's, Plunkett, and UNICEF, which is the key partners. And I just want to acknowledge UNICEF, who've played a really key role in actually providing the technology and space for these webinars. So it's been really great to, as an example of collaboration at this level, where different organisations use their strengths and skills. So it's been good to have big ups to UNICEF for facilitating that. And Skip, which is a part of Oranga Tamariki, have also seen the wisdom of supporting this local-led facilitative sort of dialogue. So we really appreciate their support. In terms of background, I've really sort of said a bit about why child-rich communities and that. A few years back, we sort of identified about 21 communities across New Zealand. We had conversations, they had conversations between each other, and out of that, we distilled some touchstones, if you like. These ones on the screen now are some of the touchstones, or if you like, principles from a wider community development approach around, you know, trying to work to grow local visions and connections, building on streets. That's not ignoring people's deficits and challenges, that's important, but what we focus on grows, so we need to understand the strengths that exist within a place, really encouraging the diversity of people and sectors, collaboration, and we don't wait until we get the perfect plan. This is sort of a process and approach where we actually start working and doing things, and then we learn by reflecting on what we're doing. And recently in Inspiring Communities, we've tried to sort of pull this approach or this thinking into some sort of illustrative or diagrammatic way, and this is our form that we've landed on at the moment. No doubt in a few years' time we're going to refine that. This is Te Whakawhanaki Hapuri, Māori, sorry, it's the Māori term for community-led development. And out of our tiriti framework and approach, in, you know, within Aotearoa, we're on about place, then we want what happens in this place to reflect that our tiriti relationships. So in this diagram there, we have essentially the basis is the place, the whenua, the people of that whenua, the whenua have the primary relationship there. And then within those communities, you have that whole weaving of different strands of communities and society that go through there. Some there are named, but there's many others. So it's really that overall weaving of strands is what we want to understand and, in that sense, work with in our different initiatives. Out of our conversations with the 21 communities, these were some of the key points that were common across all of them. And in this one, we're going to focus on collaboration and sort of relationship focus. So we're sort of going to dig a bit more into those strands or those aspects of this approach. So I think what I'm going to do now and is pass over to Erena Mikaere in Hokonui, is that right? Erena, you're in Hokonui. So, kia ora, Erena. We look forward to hearing some of the developments and initiatives within your community. We're going to pass over the slides so you can control the visuals and kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, anei rā te reo Ngāti Rangi me Ruapehu hei me atu kia koutou katoa I tēnei ata. Nā reira, nei rā te mihi. It is, yeah, it's a real, I guess it's a real honour and privilege to share our story. It always is. We do get to share it quite a lot. So it's great to share it through child-rich communities who we've had a relationship with actually in the background for a couple of years now. So I am just going to kick straight into it. The story that I'm going to share today is, as it says, it's our story. So, and there will be different stories, I acknowledge, all around the motu, all around the country. I'll give a little bit of context around our rural location here in the Central North Island. I'll talk quite heavily actually about the collectively driven transformation that's been created through collaboration and through the importance of relationships that have been established to drive this movement. I'll introduce and talk briefly about our framework, so I guess the whole EL of what we do. I will talk about our critical success factors, and that is because we've actually been doing this for a little while. So we launched our first plan in 2013. I was just telling the team that we're launching the next plan tomorrow, so it's a bit hectic here today, but that's okay. So what we've got is a number of lessons that we've learned to share, and I'll share some of those. And then what I'll do is I'll actually also just briefly go through some of the outcomes. I'll highlight some of the outcomes that we've been able to achieve by working strongly together and wrap up with a few concluding remarks. So this is where we are.
And that's a really good framework. And what I forgot to mention is for people who are listening to this webinar, if through some of what Erena is sharing, it prompts a question for you to think, oh, I wonder about this, we really encourage it interactive. So there's on your toolbar there, there's a box there that you can type a question in. So if you're there listening and got a question, just feel free to type that question in, and then Lisa, who's here in the room with us, will sort of pass that to me, and we'll try and feed those questions through the process and keep it sort of a little bit conversational as well. So sorry, Erena, I just didn't mention that. Yeah, where are you?
This is where we are. So we being Ngāti Rangi, so this whole kaupapa, this plan is umbrellaed by the iwi here, one of the local iwi here, Ngāti Rangi, who are based primarily in and around Hokonui. But we say it's iwi-led, community and collectively driven, but whānau focused. So Raitihi, Hokonui and Wairua are our main towns. There's about, those stats are old, they're 2006, because we started back in 2012 before the census came out in 2013. But now we are around about just under 4,000. And just to give some context as well, so our town, Raitihi, is 65% Māori, Hokonui is 38%, and Wairua is 45% Māori. As a district, we're about 40%, but obviously quite heavily in some of our townships. And you can see there the median income for Raitihi back in 2006 was 19,000. And, you know, quite shockingly, it only shifted to 20,000 come the 2013 census. So these are some of the realities that our families are facing where we live. Quite poignant to this particular presentation is the fact that we brought together what we call a community reference group. They are about 40 different people, but they represent a number, or I guess hundreds actually, behind them. So there are 40 different leaders and influencers amongst our community from lots of different industries. Oh, that's us. We made the finalists for New Zealand Innovation Awards one year. So these are some of the organisations, most of the organisations, the ones that have logos. So we work across education, employment, housing, health and social. And so what we then have is a number of representatives from those different sectors and industries that sit around our community reference group. That group was...
Sorry, Erena, prior to this initiative, would those groups have sat at the table together or met?
No, you know, what was funny, David, was back in 2012 was actually when we first brought the group together, because the iwi had done a little research project on the current state, on a bit of an environmental context, and found all of those kind of stats around actually how stark the reality was for our people here. And, you know, we're a ski town, so we look really flash and we have nice restaurants, and we do, just in case you want to visit Hokonui. But behind the scenes, you know, behind the curtains, our people were in survival mode. And so we have a vision as an iwi to continue to vibrantly exist in 1,000 years' time. And for us to continue to do that, we need to make sure that home is vibrant and home is thriving. So we got all of these people in together. We're talking our schools, our police, and the New Zealand Army, obviously, over in Wairu, our major employers, our whānau and hapu members, our marae committee members and chairs, the iwi, our health providers, our religious leaders, and it's kind of St. John's, all of our different community trusts came in the room together for the first time. Wow. Believe it or not. I know we're a small place, but we didn't really, I guess there was no other forum for them to all come together, or for them to all come and sit at the same table. And so what was really funny was when we first brought them back together in 2012, and they all went around the table and introduced themselves and what they did professionally, you had people realizing, oh, I didn't know that you were the manager of this place, or that you worked here, because, you know, we might have known each other from the supermarket or from the rugby field or the netball court, or, you know, whatever it might have been, but we didn't actually know each other in a professional sense. And so
even just posting that, you triggered connections and relationships, you know, just from the point of convening that. Ka pai kia ora.
Yeah, so we have a whakatauki that is from one of our local leaders here, and it says, and it really kind of encapsulates the kaupapa, which is about, it goes, "Rārangahia te taurāwhiri tangata kia hua i te marama," which, if you were to translate, it means weaving the different strands of people together to bring about enlightenment. But for the purposes of this pen, we say it's about bringing people together to make a difference. And so that is very much what happened right from that day in April of 2012. And I guess I'm really pleased and proud to say that that group is still together today. And the shift in them, so the shift in their thinking and in their conversations for me to witness since back then has been, I guess, one of the biggest highlights and the biggest outcomes. So kind of moving forward, we took a process. This is our process that we go through, and I'll speak a little bit more to it later on, but it's called Stack Storage Solutions. And so everything that we do is evidence-based. We gathered statistics, and the point of difference here is that we actually gathered and requested stats from central government. And the reason why we did that is because they are irrefutable by government. So when we gathered them and then took them back to government and said, this is what your stats are telling us is happening in our area, and then we gathered the stories from the people, because the local people, they are the experts here. You know, no one in Wellington or no one outside of the area knows this place better than the people who actually live here. And so what I mean by that is they know what will work, they know what won't work and what hasn't worked before. They know that, you know, in the winter time, don't even bother trying to have a meeting after 6 o'clock because it snows here and it's way too cold, nobody will come out. You know, it's just like little stories like that. So we gathered the stats, we gathered the stories from the people. Included in those stories were obviously the challenges, the barriers, and then also their aspirations. So what they actually wanted for our place and our people. And then together, through analysis and then through facilitating all of them and others around our community, they were the ones that came up with the 23 solutions that make up our framework. So picking up off that kōrero and the whole theme of collaboration and relationships, I just want to explain the concept of the shadows there that sit underneath the mountain. So there's a saying and an understanding here at home in Ngāti that koro Ruapehu or Ruapehu, he will look after everything that lives in his shadow. And the point of this plan is that for those of us that live in his shadow, we learn from him and we turn around to look after each other. And so you'll see the three main colours at the bottom there of yellow, pink and green. Yellow is Aitahi, pink is Hokonui, green is Wairu. And when we come together, we create new colours and more beautiful things. And so that's like kind of like the underlying kaupapa or the waka, you know, that thing that will continue to move us forward together. And when we brought that group of people together back in 2012 and they introduced themselves, they all actually had a story about their relationship with place, with koro. So it actually goes back to the whanaki diagram that you had up before, David, was that, yes, we're tangata whenua, but what we did that day was we opened the door and we allowed anyone of any ethnicity, of any age, to, I guess, to be explicit about their connection to here and their connection to all of our mountain. He's all of ours. He looks after all of us. And in turn, we have a responsibility to look after him and each other. And so you had stories like, we came here, we were just meant to be here for 2 years, and that was 35 years ago and 4 children ago. So it was some really neat stories coming through about why people were here, and what was really clear was that they were all drawn to him. They were all drawn to our mountain. And so that's kind of our shared vision that again underpins us and holds us together. This is about our maunga, our people, our stories, our place. We all have a love for this place and its people, and so we all want to do something together. And yes, we have, you know, inside of that group, you've got the council, you've got businesses who might be having daru or who might be having disagreements outside of this kaupapa. And so that's kind of actually the tone that I set from the very beginning, was when they walked into that room as the Ruapehu Whānau Transformation Community Reference Group, they left whatever else they had going on outside of the room. They walked into that room for our people and our future. And so they had to focus in on that, and they had to continue to focus in on their solutions, the things that they designed for us. And that's, believe it or not, it's actually worked. So just to continue to remind them about purpose has worked in I guess holding us together as a collaborative unit. So
well, that's such a powerful illustration of the whole whenua of, you know, because with the maunga, the koro there, it's such a key, you know, both ancestral and, you know, people relate to that. I mean, it's such the way and the use of shadows, people living in the shadow of that, really does establish place and whenua as what connects people. So that's a really powerful framework, and it sounds like everyone can relate to that. I mean, everyone, no matter where they live in that district, they all see the mountain, they all have a connection in some way, and it may not, you know, maybe expressed differently, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know, that difference in expression and perception and reality, like, you know, that's okay. And I think that this kaupapa has allowed people to see that it's okay. It's okay that we're all different, but we all have strengths that we can bring in together. And the shadow corridor, you know, you're quite right, David, in that, to be honest, so obviously as the sun rises, it comes over koro, it comes over him. But depending on where you are in which town, there are different colours, there are different lights. They might be pink, they might be yellow, they might be something else that you can actually see depending on where you are in and amongst Arohia, which is another reason why when I talked to the designer about everything that had happened, this is the concept that he came up with, and this one that everybody just jumped on. So they all get a choice. So we drive it, but that group, I continue to go back to them. So we meet between 4 and 6 times a year, and then now we obviously meet each other and see each other outside of that all of the time. But they're the ones that actually give me the guidance. So I'll come to them with a problem, or this is how it's going, what do you think we should do, this is what I need your opinion on. Actually, I need your staff members for this. And that's the other thing, is that we have a shared vision, a shared plan, and we now share resources, and we've always shared decision making. And that's, you know, that might seem like a little bit risky and scary, and yes, it was at the very beginning, but I'm glad that we just jumped in and took that risk, because it's really paid off for us. And it's really meant that they've bought into this kaupapa, they've truly bought into it. So we've been able to achieve and finish and complete the 23 solutions, and I'll highlight some of those later on in this discussion. But what I want to point out too is the opportunities. So you can see under the 5 areas, there are 10 key opportunities. And so what we found were there were, I guess, initially, these were our biggest barriers, our biggest challenges. But this is all about flipping the switch and flipping the lens on it and turning things into, rather than a bad thing and a problem, turning it into an opportunity. So we discovered that these 10 things were things that if we could change, they were going to create the greatest amount of change in the shortest amount of time. And we knew we needed to kind of leap up through that change. We needed to create transformation and a platform for transformation that our people could also buy into. So not everyone is going to buy in at the beginning. You know, we're all different, and that's okay. But what that means is sometimes people can't see the vision. They can't see it, or they can't believe it until they can actually, you know, see something tangible come out of it. And so you had people who could believe in the vision and who obviously shared in the vision and created the vision. And luckily enough for us, we had enough people to do that, to influence and do that. And then now, 5 years down the track, the community reference group has grown. The people who are in support and who are aware of the kaupapa and all of the different projects has grown as well. So what we do is we track ourselves. Those are our measurement dimensions, those 10 key areas of opportunities, so that we know we have data, and we monitor that data in the shift, so that we know that we are actually creating an impact that is needed, but also that is sustainable. These aren't just one-off programs or initiatives or projects that are going to be, you know, or hooray for about, you know, 5 months, and then they kind of wean off, which is a lesson that we learned going into this that had happened so many times before. Someone had started something, but then they moved away, and it went away as well. So we had to make sure that we were creating different platforms that were sustainable to continue on. No matter if I go, no matter who might go away, the community reference group members change their roles. They move out, in and out, and we have had some move in and out. But this kaupapa and the purpose of transforming ourselves for a more, I guess, a more prosperous and thriving, vibrant future, that must remain. And we know that this is intergenerational. The issues and the challenges that we're facing are intergenerational, and so we will continue. We actually launch the next plan tomorrow. But after that, really, the way in which the community reference group work and the way in which our people work now, that should become normalised. So we've given ourselves 8 years worth of transformation, or I guess a blueprint for transformation in these transformation plans. And then after that, we should continue to evolve and to know what we need to do as a collective moving forward. We had a PhD fellow do a case study on our particular approach, and so this is I guess his take on that. And what I wanted to more point out is the fact is that last sentence, where what we've been able to, I guess organically as well, develop is this regenerative practice of Indigenous and community development, where we've created a virtuous cycle of development whereby we enhance and support ourselves toward our own defined aspirations and outcomes. And we have, here it is. So I'll explain a little bit of this, this cycle here. So this is the virtuous cycle of development that we've been able to identify in reviewing ourselves and looking at what's worked. And so around the outside, you'll see that, you know, our catchphrase is Stats, Stories, Solutions. So this is what we do at a big picture level when we're looking at, you know, so this is the current plan. So when we're looking at designing up the actual plans themselves, we talk to the people, we gather the stats, they come up with the solutions, and then we implement. We constantly kind of assess and review ourselves, evaluate and review ourselves. We ensure that there's sustainability in the impact and in the platforms and in the projects. We do a thorough evaluation, and then that reinforms if we should be making a move, or if we should be changing what we're doing, or if our approach isn't working anymore, whatever it might be. And so we use that cycle, so I've discovered, big picture wise when we're looking at the entire framework, but then we've actually been using it inside of each of the 23 solutions as well. So it's a really good approach for us, it works for us. And that makes, I guess for me, it makes sure that we're on a really solid platform as we're implementing and testing and evaluating ourselves. It's people say we're very, we've got a very a design thinking approach, or we're akin to design thinking, which I guess in looking into it, yeah, we kind of are. And also I guess this is a model of collective impact as well, which again, we've been defined as that too.
And I think from exploring communities language, from thinking about some of our touchstones or principles, it's learning by doing. That the way you build this knowledge is by just getting on and doing it, and then actively reflecting and learning from and adapting and that. So it's that you use the word organic, it's dynamic, it's participatory. So it's that all feeds into sustainability. And I mean, there's some really powerful knowledge and wisdom. It sounds like you're growing out of this process, Erena. So it's really impressive. I'm sure a lot of people want to listen to this again, this webinar. Yeah, carry on. Yeah.
We're definitely learning our way forward, David. It's a term that I heard a few years ago, and I've always felt that way for this particular project as well, because a lot of it was just, okay, yeah, let's just try it. Let's just give it a go. Okay, the evidence is saying this. Our people are saying this. Let's just jump in and do it. And we're quite lucky that I guess we're only accountable to ourselves. And so we've been able to, when we needed to change, so like, for example, we had a solution that was about establishing a community work broker. But what we realized, you know, looking around the country after launching, was that actually work brokers weren't really working, not to the extent that we need them to work, let's be honest. And so we were like, actually, that's not really sustainable as well. So what we ended up creating was our own recruitment company, because what we found was that there was just a real lack of communication or understanding between our employers, and we knew that because they were on our community reference group, and our whānau. And we knew that because they were on the community reference group as well. So we had a story whereby one of our major employers, that you can imagine, is Skifield. And so they were saying, you know, we put up the stats of unemployment. They're like, we try to get locals to work for us, but they just don't want to apply for the jobs. And then we had locals, our local whānau in the room saying, yeah, we do want a job up there, but we think you guys don't want us. So a lot of the barriers that we've been that we've been actively removing are perceived. But, you know, even though they're perceived, they're still real. They're still real for our whānau. And so I guess this is very much, I guess, a whānau order movement as well, in that transformation that we're creating is centered on the whānau, and it's about transforming the whānau leading their own transformation, and that kind of exhibiting out. But it's also about those of us who are outside in the community and in the environment, removing barriers and allowing and accepting and celebrating that transformation, so that each generation isn't coming up against the same barriers, which is actually what's been happening for years, like 180 years. Anyway, this is some of the outcomes that we've been able to achieve, and I'll just highlight them really, really quickly because I'm conscious of time. So you can see there that our school, our college, we only got the one college, but 70% Māori. And so this was such a huge shift for us, a great shift. This is one of the best results in the country. We've been able to establish where I'm sitting right now, actually, in a community learning and tech hub, which is those things there you can see in the bullet points, but it's really about, I guess it's about preparing ourselves and our tamariki for the future and the world of work, and, you know, automation of the industries around here, forestry, farming, those are, you know, heavy industries around here, and automation is already coming. So we need to prepare ourselves with the competencies that are required for the new world of work. Also, with the technology today, we wanted to make sure that our people can learn and earn locally, but at a national or a global platform or marketplace. And so that's what this space is about as well. That's what it used to look like. So it was sitting dormant for about 3 years as an old college building, and this is what it looks like today. These are our babies at one of our coding holiday programs. And we have whānau events, a lot of whānau events, and this is Uncle here coding the robot for robot races when it's meant to be a tamariki. This is our recruitment company, ruapehurecruitment.co.nz. They have achieved over 330 employment outcomes, which equates to about just over $8 million worth of income to local families over the last 4 years. We have a housing program, and I think we can all kind of relate to this. You know, when we're talking about addressing the needs of our tamariki around the motu, around the country, the home is so integral to their well-being. And so we have a major project, Te Whare Ahuriki Ruapehu. This is so much more that I could say about this, but this is just one example of a before and after photo. So we work with over 200 families, and we have a team now that do that, and they are a sustainable team. So I guess just some concluding remarks is that this kaupapa is obviously iwi-led and it has an Indigenous lens, but it's for the benefit of everybody. There's shared visions, shared values, that's really key, shared resources and shared decision making. Our process of statutory solutions really allows for authentic insights and authentic aspirations so that we know we're working, I guess, to the right thing. We're dancing to the music that's being played here at home, not to anybody else's sounds and music. We are all about creating sustainable impact, and to do that we need to create sustainable platforms for change. So for example, Te Paitata and Ruapehu recruitment are social enterprise models so that they can provide commercial services that will create an income stream that will then allow us to continue to do some of the work that we do for our people. And that's how we will make sure that they are sustainable. There is a transcendental value of our whenua, and so that goes back to that story about everybody connecting to koro, everybody connecting to place and to the mountain, and to this inherent understanding. I think it's very much an Indigenous understanding, but I think we all understand it, is that, you know, the well-being of people is really dependent and linked to the well-being of our environment. You know, if our environment is unwell, then we are going to be unwell as people. So that's very much a part of this kaupapa. And kind of a recent realization for me, I guess, was this intergenerational responsibility. So we are all only but a moment in time. And so what we do now in our time will provide a better platform for those in front of us, for my children and their children. So we all have a responsibility to do something in our time, but to know that it's not all about us. It has to be about the future and well beyond us. So hopefully that kind of makes things a little bit ego light, removes the egos, and reminds us of what is most important and why, I guess, why we do what we do, and keeping us focused together collectively on purpose, because that for us has been the thing that has worked.
Yeah, and thank you. You've probably summarised, you know, gone over very succinctly a really complex, and, you know, as you say, any one of those slides and stories, there's stories within those stories, and we haven't got time for a lot of questions, but just one question, and it's sort of it's the challenges around the relationships and collaborations. You know, were there points when some people sort of did some pushback against this for whatever reason, and if that did happen, you know, what was your insight about how you responded, or, you know, to that potential negativity?
Yeah, there's been a number of different pushback, and to different extents as well. So I'll give a couple of examples. Because this is an iwi-led or iwi umbrella kaupapa, which is kind of a new thing really for iwi to be doing something for everybody. And so we had a number of, I guess, our own questioning that. So like, why are we doing something for everybody? And the reason why is because we're just too small. I think, you know, across the nation, we need to do it anyway. But for us especially, for us to create sustainable change, we can't just do it in like small little silos and pockets. And that's just going to be, it's going to fall over. So truly, to have sustainable impact, we needed to make sure that there was consistent and full transformation right across our entire environment. And that will make sure that that transformation is sustained, you know, across all those intergenerational challenges and barriers that we need to get rid of. So the other thing, and what you have to do there, and what we did there, is we just carried on. We just had to. And so, and you know, what's really nice though is that it only took, as I say this, it only took a few years for those people to come around. So now they love it. They're some of the biggest champions for it, and they talk about it everywhere that they go. And that's just the realities really. Is sometimes it's a noisy minority. That noise can get distracting, but you just have to carry on. If you know you're right, and you've got like this, I guess, this cohort of strength around you that's pushing it forward as well, you just have to carry on. The other example is actually within our community reference group, where we've had really only recently a certain, I won't name them, but a certain industry, so you know we've got all of those 5 industries and more together, a certain industry which I guess they come from a very traditional and competitive model, have only really just come around. They constantly come to the hui, to the meetings, and are involved in things, but I think maybe the penny has only just dropped. So I guess the biggest lesson there is perseverance, David. You just got to persevere. Keep going.
Look, thank you for sharing that, those insights about that aspect of it, because sometimes we can sort of romanticize collaboration. And also, I think from your journey, just what you've shared here, is that it's a sort of organic growing process. So some are moving a bit quicker and some are sort of lagging a bit behind. And the idea is that they're moving and people will move in their own time. But as you sort of said, well, we just got on and started doing the do and adapting and using all the social technology that you've pulled together, both Indigenous worldviews, PhD students from Australia. That's a really rich story, and I appreciate you sharing that, and you've highlighted lots of insights around, collaboration and relationships and so much more. So kia ora for your mahi and the team, and I hope your launch tomorrow. I'm sure that's going to be a really powerful day, and thank you for taking time out and what's probably a bit of a pressure cook a few days. So very much appreciated, Erena.
You're very welcome. Kia ora. Thanks, David.
And now we're going to sort of shift. I mean, the cool thing about this Child-Rich Community Network is we're all diverse communities, different realities, different stories, and we're going to leap from the central part of the Ika Maui, the North Island, and we're going to jump down to Waiponamu in the south, and the Gore district there in Otago, and Lisa McKenzie's there in the Gore district, and we're going to talk a bit about the Hokonui Highway Project. Different place, different story, different themes, similar themes. Lisa, welcome to the webinar.
Hi, can you see, have I done this right?
Yeah, I think we can see the slide. So, yep, Zeb's nodding, so we can hear you and see you. So we're all live, all good.
That's a good start. So thank you very much for asking us to be part of this webinar today. It's a bit of after coming on after Erena, it's a bit of a tough act to follow. We're much further, what we're trying to do is still in its infancy. So I'll just put that on the table now. So yes, I'm part of the Hokonui Highway Project. We're based in the Gore district, and it's it's a real privilege to be able to share our story to date, and also to hear what other people have their journeys through these webinars. So it's been really good. I'm never going to get this to work. So the Hokonui Highway Project is actually quite similar to what Erena was just talking about. For us, it's a coordinated community-led initiative where we want to maximise service provision. The intent is to ensure that we have a cross-sector whole of community approach. We want to be able to target children and young people who might be falling behind through early identification and response. And we want to ensure that all of our children and young people have the skills and well-being necessary to travel seamlessly from birth through to adulthood. And our vision is that we have success for all with nobody getting left behind. And that's really important to us. So for a bit of the highways, I'll talk more about that in a minute, but so the highway is a metaphor for the journey that children and young people take as they grow and mature from birth to adulthood. The concept was, one of our local secondary school principals came up with the concept. We'd been looking at, a few years ago, we've been sort of trying to work out how do we provide better support for our 16 to 24-year-olds. The space was a bit cluttered, everyone wanted to do something in that space. And we were sitting down, myself and someone from the Ministry of Ed and a local secondary school principal, and the mayor had been involved as well, trying to look at what could we do differently. And John McKinley stood up and said, what if we looked at this like a road, like it's a highway, and think about this as if we're traveling from A to B, what is it that we need? And how do we make sure, what's the infrastructure that's required? The road needs a good surface. You need to know how to get from A to B. There's got to be good signage and roundabouts. And we found that it was quite easily, that was a really useful visual tool and a good metaphor to use that people seem to understand quite well. So it fits in well, thinking about that highway approach fits in well with the fact that we didn't want our children and young people to be sitting off the highway, sitting on the side of the road, waiting for some support, or everyone's travelling along nicely and then turns back and goes, oh, where's so-and-so? Oh, we've left, a quarter of them behind. So we've stuck with that metaphor. People do get confused sometimes and think that we're building a road. If they're not used to it, they don't know what it is that we're doing, but that's okay. One day I'm sure that we'll have some really good, we need to do some branding and design, and so that will help us out. So in terms of the context and location, so we're in the Gore district. So if anybody doesn't know where that is, it's in Southland. We have the size and locations probably a really advantage for us. It's quite geographically it's quite small. There's about 12,000 people in the district, but it's got a catchment area of about 20-odd thousand. There's pockets of need within the community. So we have a couple of low decile primary schools that feed into medium decile to areas. We were one of the social sector trial locations, and we learned a lot from that. That helped us to recognise the value of working collaboratively. And there's lots of complementary programs of work that are happening across the community at the moment. So it was really important for us to be well connected. So some of our challenges, like I mentioned before, we've got pockets of need. So a number of our children, our tamariki and rangatahi, don't travel seamlessly through to adulthood. Many of them were struggling academically, not engaged. Mental health and addiction, poor general health can have significant impact. Our stats, we were starting to see, when the trial finished, we started to see our local offending stats go up, stand down suspension stats, job seeker rates, and the need for, we knew that we needed to do better for the complex cases. We were a bit like Erena, data is really important, and so we have used a lot of the IDI data to get a real good snapshot of where we are, even though that's still, some of it's estimating, but it looks at, in some areas we are higher than the national average. So for example, our 15 to 24-year-olds, the ones that they're estimated extreme, or at high risk of poor outcomes. So national average is 11%, and we're sitting at 15%. So for us, you could say, well, yes, things are ticking along nicely, and that's great, but we need to do more. We don't want people getting left behind, and that's really, I think, driving us to come together like this. So as part of this, the work, we've got the framework. You're working towards having an integration framework to help pull everything together, to weave it together. We've got 3 work streams at the moment that we're finalising initiatives for. So we're calling it Learning to Earning is one of them. So that's about supporting NEET youth and also at-risk 16 to 24-year-olds, making sure that the skills and wellbeing necessary to successfully engage in education, training or employment. Because we're a rural area, sometimes young people, they might be in employment, but they're still at risk. They might be quite isolated on a dairy farm. We know, in the southern region, mental health, mental well-being is an impact for us, suicide rates, those sorts of things. So we need to do more in that area. Intensive wraparound. We did some scoping last year to help identify where we should be focusing in needs on. So that's what's informed this, and the data supported it. We're needing to do more for that complex, those cases that sort of sit in below FGCs, where strengthening families would be. And also, what do we need to do? The third work stream is around health, wellbeing and resilience. What do we need to do to be increasing access to those supports and services? One of the big pieces for us is around, in which to try and help it make it sustainable, is thinking about how do we maximise the resource that we've got available. How do we make sure that we are making the most of what we've got? Because our community doesn't stand out as really badly in the statistics, then we've got to fight a lot harder. We've got to get resource sometimes, to stand out and say, hey, we need this for our people. So because of what we're trying to do, then collaboration and relationships are critical. You know, we, like I said before, the frameworks at the centre, we want to move towards this a whole of community approach, the collective impact approach. We have a strong belief that no one sector, agency, organisation or person can impact some of these challenges in isolation. So therefore we need to have these strong, you know, relationships to achieve this vision. Sorry, I need to go. So we've got some key partners at the moment. Now, I just want to point out that this will have grown and evolve over the lifespan of the project. At the centre, we've got 4 lead partners for this project: the Hokonui Runanga, the Gore District Council, the Community Network Trust, and the East and South End Community of Learning. Plus, we've got other groups that. Sorry.
If I can ask a question, Lisa, so those 3 priority areas you talked about, did they come out of the conversations with these partners? Was it how were they formed?
So it came out of, so we did some scoping where we did some consultation, is how we looked at those initial priority areas. So that's, you know, we talked to different people, talking to young people, to some whānau. It was really, and the data told us as well. So we, like I said, we used that IDI data. Sorry, and it showed us, you know, we know that some of the areas that we have to, those risk indicators around suspensions and stand downs, notifications of child, youth and family, all of those sorts of things help to inform this as well. So it was, you know, those streams have been informed by consultation that we did, scoping the project. The data has helped to inform that as well. And it's just where, because, you know, locally, the things that we'd had the spike and things that weren't going well, so say, you know, our youth job seeker rates had risen and been, you know, rising for a while. We had spike in offending, you know, those sorts of things. So we put all of that really together, and that's the priority areas. They will change, you know, and evolve over time, but that's what we're focusing on at the moment. Does that help? Does that answer?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so plus we've also, you know, as part of the implementation team and the groups around us, you know, we've got a strong connection with your police and local secondary schools and the Ministry of Ed and Oranga Tamariki. You know, young people have been involved as well, and that will just grow and evolve as we go through the project. Oh, sorry. So why do we want to take this approach? Often everyone's got a part to play, you know, in the community and what it is that we're doing, and there's different programs of work, and everyone, you know, has their thing to do. But and some of it's really well connected, and sometimes it's not. And in that, you know, we've got, there's children in Tamariki and Rangatahi, you know, family whānau is there as well. But sometimes everything just sort of spins around at a high, you know, cross community level, but also at an individual level. So what we're thinking is that the project will help us to add some teeth to this. And these teeth, I guess, end up being like the processes and structures, relationships, things that will help us to work in a more connected way. We've also seen this recently from Oranga Tamariki, one of our contacts, you know, providing this. I don't know if people have seen it before, but it's quite useful looking at where people work right through the integration level. You know, and so often there'll be pockets of collaboration, pockets of sectors or organisations that work well together. So I threw that in there because I thought it was quite useful. But this is where we want to go. You know, when we see it visually, I guess, even though we're talking about a road, but it's more cog-like. Do you know what I mean? That everyone's still got their part to play. But if we can strengthen the relationships, we can strengthen some of the processes and systems, then we'll get better results. You know, everything will be, I guess, tighter, you know, better connected, and we'll get, I don't know, improve outcomes, but maximise what we've got, if that, I don't know, makes sense. kind of makes sense to us. I'm not sure it makes sense to anyone else.
That's good.
So, like you were talking about before, working collaboratively is not always easy. And I talk about this quite a bit. It reminds me of when your children are preschoolers and you do baking with them and you're running out of time and you just need to get something baked, but they find you and they go, oh, can I come and help? And on the inside, you're thinking, oh, no, please don't. I don't have time for this. But on the outside, you're like, oh, yes, that'll be great. And you know that it's going to take longer, and you know that it's, perhaps going to be a bit of a mess, and you know that the product may not be as good to start with, but it's really important that you keep doing it, because otherwise you don't get to share the knowledge. You're not helping with sustainability and those sorts of things. I think, too, it's sometimes like snakes and ladders. We've found in this process that, you think you're making some ground, and then something happens and you've got to go right back again. So it's not easy, but I don't know, you keep chipping away. Another proverb, or it's a piece that's sort of been helping us through this, is an African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's so important, and we just have to keep reminding ourselves of that sometimes, when people say, oh, why is it taking so long? And, those sorts of things. Actually, because, yes, we could do something by ourselves in isolation, but it's not going to have the same impact as if we actually come together and build those relationships and look at how we are going to find those solutions for our community. So in terms of building relationships, we need to do that, I think, across the community, at a local level, but also up. It's really important, to build relationships, right through to a central government level, at a regional level. We need people to understand, if you want to be innovative, you need people to understand what it is that you're trying to do. So we've done, I think for us, a bit of the focus at the moment has been going up, to increase and getting people's heads around what it is that we're trying to do. And then, we'll look more to going out. Some people might say, oh, you've done that around the wrong way. You should do that across the community and then go up. But I think sometimes you need to have your ducks in a row first. When you're looking at some structure and you need some funding, it's a lot easier to go to the wider public and say, right, we've got this now. Let's look at that co-design. So some of the challenges we've faced is, when do you start building those relationships and introducing new stakeholders to the project? Like I said before, do you do it do you get everybody involved? And what does community mean? Is that everybody in the community, or is that a certain sector? Some people, if it's about changing infrastructure, then some people don't want to be involved in that part. They just want to know that you've got that bit sorted, and they want to be involved in perhaps some of the initiatives on the ground. And so that sort of leads into that about co-design as well. We're really committed to taking that co-design approach. And so some of that, but sometimes you've got to have that foundation built to start, to begin with. Often what we've found is, as we've brought in new stakeholders, we've had to go back to the start. So like I mentioned before, we're a social sector trials location. So within the framework that we had, we already had some key learnings and some strong things, but as we've increased the age, we've got new people on board, and so we've had to go back a little bit to get people to the same point that we were already at, if that makes sense. So that can be a bit time consuming. There's no right answer sometimes. What some people view as a negative, other people will view exactly the same situation as positive. So as an example of that, we had a product. My gut feeling was, people knew about it. They were, yes, it was something that we wanted to do. It was a product that we were looking at introducing that was, already had been set up. But we thought, no, we'll wait until we got the funding sorted, and then we'll go and take it. And that was probably the wrong approach a little bit for this particular product. And people were like, people don't like things being rolled in on top of them if they don't feel like they've had a chance to take part. But the exact same product, when we launched it, we had another provider, another group of people saying, oh, it was so good not to have to just come along and that you've done all the hard work. We didn't have to come to a whole lot of meetings. We didn't have to sit around for the last 6 months, because we knew this is what we wanted. So you just can't, I don't know, sometimes there's just no right answer. And I've put in there about circles and triangles. Some people like, they like things in circles, and other people like things in triangles. And it's the same, telling the same story, but it just comes across in different ways. And there's just no right answer. Working collaboratively, which you sort of talked about before, can be met with resistance. Some people don't like it. It can be a bit threatening. They're not used to it, but I think you do just have to box on. Some of the advantages, which we've talked about, it makes it easier to respond. It makes it easier to, if you're already mobilised, and someone wants, there's an issue, you say, oh, we can fix that. Oh, yes, we can do that. Whereas if you don't have that level of, those relationships and that collaboration, it makes it much harder to do that.
Lisa, can I throw in a question there? Sorry, before you just made the comment about, some groups and some people are really reluctant to collaborate in that. And you said, you just need to sort of box on and keep moving.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the things that help you keep moving? Like, what are some of the skills or thinking or whatever, that resources that enable you to keep moving if there's people who are reluctant?
I think I think you need to step back and reflect and be really clear about where the reluctance is coming from. I think you need to be really sure about what it is that you're doing. So if you're stepping back, if you're getting a bit of reluctance, if you're getting, 2 or 3 people saying, oh, from different sectors going, oh, I'm not sure about that, then you may need to step back and go, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't right. Or it could be that it's, some people don't like change. Sometimes there are some groups or some people, it takes a while. They need to see the success before they get on board. So you might say to yourself, actually, we know that this is, not what they like, but this is how it is for them. And so we need to ease the way. Sometimes you need to go and have conversations with them. They may not understand it if they feel threatened by it. I think what really helps is knowing your community and knowing that you're on the right track and sticking with that.
Right.
But you do need to reflect on, okay, where is this coming from? But having some of those conversations, using relationships, is there somebody else that could go and talk to them, to help ease that pathway?
Right.
That helps.
Thank you. Yeah. So then you've got some advantages of collaboration. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it is, if you've got those, and I think too, because if you've got good relationships, you can have those hard conversations sometimes. If you've worked with someone for a while, it's much easier to say, well, hang on a minute, what's this really about? But also knowing, if you've know that somebody else has got a better relationship with that person, you could go and get them to have the conversation and say, okay, you're a bit resistant about this. Have you thought of some things that we haven't thought of? I don't know. You just have to feel it out, I guess. But don't be afraid to, like I said, sometimes you do need to box on, and success will breed success. You can gather them up later on. Just still keep working with them. But if lots of people are telling you that that it's not right, then perhaps you need to step back and go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe we do need to change something.
Right.
Sorry, I hope that's answered the question.
No.
So an example of sorry, I'm running out of time. An example of a relationship, we have a really strong relationship with our East and Southland community of learning. We're quite lucky in the fact that all of the schools in our area are part of that. We have similar visions. We've got things that we're working on together. So the East and Southern community of learning, one of the things that they have is a wellbeing inquiry group. They're thinking about doing a wellbeing snapshot across the 2,500 students, plus parents, caregivers, teachers. So that'll give us some really good insight as to what's going on. From there, they're thinking about doing, perhaps some professional development, some work within the schools. So alongside of that, from a Hokonui Highway perspective, we also have a focus on health and wellbeing and resiliency, and we've been building relationships through some contacts with HPA and the National Telehealth Service. So what we're thinking is that when the snapshot's there, because we've got the relationships with the with these providers, that we can come together and to do some solutions. So it's not just about what are you going to fix in the schools? What are the schools going to do about health and well-being? Actually, how can we support you with that? What can we all be working on together? If that helps. So that just comes back to that, to the highway again, that we all have a part to play in this infrastructure. It's not just about one sector. We used to hear that quite a bit. Oh, it's the school's fault, or the police need to fix that. Somebody else needs to fix it. Actually, no, we all have a part to play in it. And we all need to come together to do that. So that's really, has anyone else got any questions? Because we're right on time. Sorry.
No, that's good. And I mean, I think it's a powerful point, Lisa, you make there at the end there, which is moving beyond a blame culture, so that, if you build a good collaborative culture and work at some of that. And I love that image of the messiness of the children making the cake sort of stuff, and that's, if you want it really neat and tidy, well, you maybe have to learn to sort of adjust a little bit of mess. But if you do that, then you do get less of that blame finger and pointing the finger at the other people that aren't in the room. It's their fault. And I think across both the examples and places and stories shared today, both in with the Ruapehu Whānau Transformation Project and in the Gore District and with the Hokonui Highway Project, even though you're really at the early stages, Lisa, and all that, it seems to be already there's some connections you're making and moving away from that blame stuff. And one of the things I know that both of you also have powerful metaphors or ways of trying to language to talk about that. There's a neutral way that everybody can relate to or put themselves in the picture and see their role in it. So whether it's a whenua, a maunga, the Ruapehu, the mountain, or whether it's a metaphor of a highway or a road, it provides a way of everybody linking into that rather than seeing, oh, that's just to do with you, or, it's not about me. So I think there's some really powerful insights. You have lots of powerful insights you both shared about that. So thank you, Lisa, for talking about developments and the journey, which, as you say, it's in its infancy, but there's always going to be learnings and challenges at every point. And, we look forward to the Child Rich Community Network of catching up on some of those, hopefully over time. And Erena, thank you also for all the rich insights from your community. And now, look, so we've reached the end of the 3 webinars, the end of this one today in the series of 3. All the 3 webinars are available on our Child Rich Communities website, which is on the Inspiring Communities website. So if there's any one of those 3 really diverse, then that's a resource you can go and click on and use. So thank you for those people that have participated through listening and sending in your questions. Thank you again to UNICEF, to Zeb and to Lisa for doing all the important sort of background support to have these to operate. I've enjoyed them and learned a lot. So kia ora koutou katoa.